Hey Honors Physics, this is Mr. Hausman, and we're going to take a look today at one of the most consequential or most important equations that was ever developed by humans, and it was the discovery by Isaac Newton, not that he invented gravity or discovered gravity, but rather that he made the connection that gravity is a force that is found throughout the universe and basically is a phenomenon found when two masses, any two masses, right, are attracted to each other. And so everyone's heard of the parable, the story perhaps, that Isaac Newton was sitting in an orchard, and when an apple fell upon his head, he realized that gravity was something that was not just, right, on Earth. And that parable is meant for students of a very young age to kind of maybe feel like they're connected to a major discovery or realization. But really what Isaac Newton has written about is that the force of gravity that quite obviously attracts masses to the Earth, such as an apple falling, is the same exact force that causes other objects to be attracted to each other, such as the moon of our planet, of Earth, as it travels around the Earth. So the realization led him and others to do an incredible amount of research in laboratories where they would take masses, both man-made masses, sometimes very large spheres made of metal. In fact, one informational source that I found says that one of those spheres was a lead ball that weighed, that was several feet in diameter, and they would position other very small objects above it, and they would put that on a balance, basically on a seesaw. And what they would notice is that these large masses, right, mass 1, had enough effect that if they built precise enough balances, they could actually measure the attraction between another small mass, M2, and M1. And if they did that with a variety of masses, and they collected that data, they noticed that the force of gravity was proportional to the two masses, M1 and M2. So the larger the masses, the larger the attraction. And it was inversely proportional to the distance between them. But not just inversely proportional, it's referred to as an inverse square law. An inverse square law is a little bit different than just an inverse proportion in that as you get to smaller and smaller distances, the force of gravity gets exponentially larger. Also, conversely, the farther the objects get apart, right, farther distances, the force of gravity gets weaker. But again, not just inversely squared. So gravity falls off, that's another way of saying that, the farther the objects are, exponentially. Okay, so with all of this data in hand, the masses and the radiuses, they notice that when you multiply the product of the masses and divide by the radius squared, that you don't actually get the same, you don't get the force, you get something that's proportional to the gravitational force, but you needed to multiply that product, all of this product, it's actually a fraction, right, too, but the whole product by a proportionality constant. And that was the same constant for every single observation. So once they knew how to take even the masses of planets to determine those and figure out the radial distance from, say, the sun, they also found that this constant held true. And that constant is referred to as the universal gravitation constant, 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th. And it applies to every place in the universe we've ever tried to measure the force of gravity. Its units are basically there to cancel out the kilograms squared with the kilograms of mass 1 and 2. They cancel out with the distance, measured in meters squared, and what's left behind is the unit Newton. Okay, So you're thinking to yourself, okay, so here's a formula for the force of gravity, but it's universal. It works anywhere. But we also have an older formula for the force of gravity that applies primarily on Earth, right? Entirely on Earth, or if you know the G of a planet, the gravitational field. And we do know the gravitational field of the planet. So in a sense, do you see that this is basically two different ways of calculating the force of gravity for things that are close to us on the planet Earth? But the catch here is, what mass does this refer to? Well, this is really M2. This is the other object. Do you remember in our calculations, we've never needed to calculate the mass of the Earth or use it in previous calculations. We were always interested in the other mass, such as your body's mass or some other hanging mass or whatever it might be. But now you need to know, according to this formula, a gravitational constant. You need to know the mass of the Earth and the mass of the object, the other object. And you need to know how far apart they are from center to center. Well, look what happens when you set the two equations equal to each other. What you realize is that the mass of the object is on both sides of the equation. And you can cancel them out. And what this does is it allows the entire of humanity to actually figure out the gravitational acceleration or the gravity field of any object if you know the mass of the object. So it doesn't have to be Earth. It could be the mass of Jupiter. It could be the mass of the sun, or any other planet. And if you know the G constant, 6.67, the important thing here is that experimentally, they can measure the gravitational field of distant objects based on how satellites that we have sent out there, how they interact. And the result here is that we have been able to confirm or determine the mass of celestial objects a huge distance from us. We don't have to go there. There's many ways to calculate that, but that is another way that we have discovered more about our universe. Okay. Now, we're going to do a couple of small practice problems involving the universal law of gravitation. And you might be wondering why we're connecting the universal law of gravitation when we're currently studying centripetal forces. Well, if you think about it, right, whether the objects are small, like M1 and M2, two human beings, or they are huge, the size of, right, the sun and the mass of the Earth, they are governed by the same physics. Now, again, I asked the question, why are we looking at gravity when we're studying centripetal forces? Well, because the force of gravity of, for example, the sun on our planet Earth is a centripetal force. Centripetal force is not actually a thing. It's a descriptor that says that a real force can actually be used to pull something toward the center. Right? So as the Earth moves in its circular or mostly circular orbit, slightly elongated, and that's a weird looking Earth, it's not even round. But the point is no matter where it is in its trajectory in the course of a year, the force of gravity is always directed toward the sun, and that is an example of a centripetal force. So let's take a look at a really easy problem, and it's kind of an interesting thing you can do. The force of gravity applies to all objects, not just large masses. So we're going to take a look at what happens if you try to measure the force of gravity between two human bodies. It probably is not going to be very much, but let's see if we can calculate it. So the force of gravity is equal to G times M1 times M2 over R squared. And G is equal to 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th. I hope that the use of scientific notation on your calculator is pretty easy for you. 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th. Newtons meters squared over kilograms squared. Then you multiply it by mass 1. Well, the guy wearing the hat and maybe a goatee, 60 kilograms, and the smaller person is 50 kilograms. Oops, I just noticed I made a mistake. There is no squared in that equation. So it's 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th times 60 times 50. Now, how far apart are they? Well, they're a distance of 1 meter apart. And we would have to square that, but of course squaring 1 doesn't do anything to it. So on your calculator, 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th times 60 times 50. If you want, you can divide by 1 squared, or 1. But you're going to get a force of attraction between the two people that is incredibly small. And that's why you have never observed the force of gravity between something like a size of a human body, right? They just are insignificant compared to the force of gravity between you and the planet Earth. So in the sense of, right, the fact that your motion is dictated by the sum of all the forces acting on you, this guy is too small right here. This guy is too small, negative 7th power for an exponent, to be appreciable, to be significant. So here we go, now finding a kind of a different application. That is to say, what is the force of gravity between a mass that's a human body, 60 kilograms, and mass 2, which is maybe the Earth's mass, and let's see if we can find the pull between an object, a person on Earth, using this new universal law. Of course, we have to put in the r squared, the inverse square relationship. So here's how it works. 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th is the g constant. It never changes. The mass of the person is 60 kilograms. And from research, I looked up and found that the mass of the Earth is a number that's to the 24th power, specifically almost 6 times 10 to the 24th power kilograms. Now, what distance would we use? How far are you from the Earth? You might say that your radial distance is 0. But because we are always referring to the distance between the centers of their masses, well, the mass of the Earth is centered approximately in the middle, and therefore, how far are you from the middle of the Earth? You are 6.38 times 10 to the 6th meters, 6 million meters. Don't forget to square that. That is the most common mistake. You write it, and you know the formula says squared, but you don't actually indicate that. So this is really just an exercise in can you use your calculator to do scientific notation. So I'm going to do the top, 6.67 times 10 to the negative 11th power times 60 times 5.98 times 10 to the 24th power. And I get 2.393 times 10 to the 16th. And if you're calculating what units you have there, you have newtons times meters squared. And then I'm going to simplify the bottom, 6.38 times 10 to the 6th. I'm going to square that. And I get 4.07 times 10 to the 13th, and that's meters squared. So, of course, the meters squared finally cancel out, and we're left with newtons. And depending on your background with scientific notation, hopefully you actually know that there's a really quick way to do this. If you just divide 2.393, or your previous answer, and you divide it by 4.07, you get a decimal, 0.588. And do you remember what to do with exponents when you divide them? Well, what you do is you subtract them. 16 minus 13 is, of course, 3. And our force of gravity, therefore, is 0.588 times 10 to the 3rd newtons. Okay, now we all know that that's not considered standard scientific notation. We need to turn that into 0.88 times 10. Since I made that number 10 times bigger, I need to make this 10 times smaller. And it's 5.88 times 10 to the 2nd newtons. And then finally, as if we want to just make sure that that number is clear, that's a 588 Newton person. The force of attraction between the person and the earth, and the force of attraction between the earth and the person, because it is a mutual attraction, is 588. Oops, I don't need newtons twice, do I? And that's how straightforward it is. And you're like, that seems like a lot more work, but here, let's do a quick check. Remember, there is a formula that works, but only if you know the g value of the planet. And so 60 kilograms times 9.8 meters per second squared. Let's see if we get the same number. And of course, we do. So Newton's law of gravitation is applicable for any two masses, even if the Earth is not involved. But, of course, this form of the equation is a little bit easier if it's a mass on the planet. So the law of gravitation works everywhere. So your work today is to investigate the Newton's law of gravitation, but you're going to do it in a way that is not necessarily as obvious as you might guess. I could have given you a page full of masses and radial distance, like what's the attraction between the Sun and Jupiter? Find the average distance between them, find their masses by looking them up. Absolutely could have done that. Instead, I want to introduce you to what's called solving problems without numbers. Problems without numbers. And it's not to say that they're not quantitative. What they are is they are about proportionalities. So let's do one, and you're going to do the rest. So we're going to say that there are two masses, M1 and M2. They could be planets, they could be marbles, they could be any object of any scale in between. But what we're describing is a situation where they, of course, exhibit a mutual force of attraction due to the fact that they have mass, and there is some radial distance between them. Well, what if one of the masses is tripled, made 3 times larger? Doesn't mean it has to be 3 times bigger, but it could be. And the other one is doubled. So the other one is 2 times bigger, its original mass. And the distance between them, I don't have a lot of space here, but imagine if the distance is twice as far. Well, what you can do, if you aren't familiar with this, is you can use coefficients to calculate or predict what's going to happen. So here's how you do it. You set up Newton's law of gravitation, the universal law of gravitation, and you put in a coefficient anywhere there's a variable that's changing. And here's what I mean by that. Well, g never changes, so you can actually ignore that. It'll always be g. But mass 1 is tripled, mass 2 is doubled, and the radius is doubled. So I put in a coefficient that matches the change for each of these. And one thing to watch out for is watch out for whatever your coefficient in the bottom is. Remember, it has to be squared. So when you simplify this and say, well, what is the overall change? The top changed by 6 because it's a product of 3 times 2. And the denominator is 4 times larger. So 6/4 reduces down to 3/2 or 1.5 times stronger force. So if the force were to come out to be 1 over 1, then it would be the same force. If it's a fraction, it's smaller. And if it's a fraction larger than 1, then it would be stronger. And you can leave it in fraction form, but I do challenge you to simplify it down or reduce the fraction, okay? So you're trying 2, 3, 4, and 5. And that is how we are going to wrap up our study of centripetal forces, circular motion, and Newton's law of gravitation. Good luck with 2 through 5. Pretty straightforward. Hopefully not the most challenging work you've done this year.